First, denied damage control in the continuing furor over Trump administration officials and contacts with representatives from Russia. And President Trump going on a Twitter offensive against the top two Democrats in Congress. Chief White House correspondent John Roberts starts us off tonight from the North Lawn. Good evening, John.
Right, good evening to you. The ongoing controversy surrounding Attorney General Jeff Sessions' contacts with the Russian ambassador completely derailed what had been a triumphant week for President Trump. And with White House staff struggling to try to find a way past it, the president today decided he was going to punch his way out.
Education is the civil rights issue of our time.
On his way to Florida to talk school choice, President Trump launched a Twitter war with the Senate Minority Leader over Russia. The first shot, a 13-year-old photo of Chuck Schumer sharing a donut with Vladimir Putin. The president writing, quote, "We should start an immediate investigation into Senator Schumer and his ties to Russia and Putin. A total hypocrite." Within minutes, Schumer fired back. Happily talk, Ari, my contact with Mr. Putin and his associates took place in '03 in full view of press and public under oath. Would you and your team? Schumer and many of his Democratic colleagues are still calling for Attorney General Jeff Sessions to step down, even though Sessions yesterday announced he would recuse himself from any investigation regarding the Trump campaign. In Janesville, Wisconsin today, the vice president said Sessions isn't going anywhere.
President and I have full confidence in the Attorney General. He is a man of integrity.
The Russian ambassador, Sergei Kislyak, has had a number of contacts with Trump officials and part-time advisors. Sessions met with Kislyak twice last year, once in his Senate office, the other time among a group of people at a conference during the Republican convention. Jared Kushner and Lieutenant General Michael Flynn met with Kislyak at Trump Tower in December, while Flynn also spoke with him by telephone. Trump campaign advisors Carter Page and J.D. Gordon had casual encounters with Kislyak at the same July conference where Sessions met him briefly. Gordon told Fox News they spent a few minutes talking about the need for better cooperation between the U.S. and Russia in the fight against terrorism. Democrats have had plenty of contact with Kislyak, too. He joined a number of them, including Congressman Bobby Rush and James Clyburn, and Senators Tammy Baldwin and Catherine Cortez Masto at the president's Tuesday speech to Congress. This afternoon, the president contradicted Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi's claim to have never met Kislyak, tweeting a photo of the ambassador just 2 seats away from Russian President Medvedev at this 2010 meeting with Pelosi. The president wrote, quote, "I hereby demand a second investigation after Schumer of Pelosi for her close ties to Russia and lying about it." The president blames Democrats for the Russia flap, insisting they're trying to save face after losing the election, calling the whole issue, quote, "a total witch hunt." Welcome or not, on that point, the president found support today from the Russian foreign minister.
I can only refer to a quote that was circulated today in the mass media. This strongly resembles a witch hunt or the times of McCarthyism.
Sergei Kislyak, who seems to be just about everywhere in Washington, was also a frequent figure here at the White House during the Obama administration. The logs show he visited the White House a total of 22 times when Barack Obama was president, including 4 times last year alone. Brett?
More on this with Speaker Ryan in just a moment. John, thank you. Congress is not in session today, but there is plenty of speculation about what Republicans are planning for Obamacare, repeal and replace. We'll talk with Speaker Ryan about that as well in just a moment. But first, what is happening today on Capitol Hill? Here's Chief Congressional Correspondent Mike Emanuel.
We expect in a matter of days, you're going to begin to see a very brisk pace of legislative activity. Look, we're going to repeal and replace Obamacare. We're going to do it at the same time.
In House Speaker Paul Ryan's hometown of Janesville, Wisconsin, Vice President Mike Pence said a better health care system is on the way. Key lawmakers are expected to work through the weekend, fine-tuning the Republican repeal and replacement of Obamacare. The Ways and Means and Energy and Commerce panels are likely to vote on the measure next week, with the goal of a vote on the House floor by the end of the month. Speaker Ryan insists the contents will be quite familiar when the bill is made public.
Much of it was modeled off the Tom Price legislation, which we as conservatives have always seen as sort of the gold standard for replacing Obamacare. He's now the Secretary of HHS. That is the bill, the plan that we ran on in 2016.
Yet Democrats are mocking Ryan and the Republicans for campaigning on repealing and replacing Obamacare since 2010, and the plan has not been unveiled. Democratic Whip Steny Hoyer confronted Republican Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy yesterday, asking to see the GOP proposal.
Can I see the bill today?
You're not on that committee, so you can look at when they mark it up.
In other words, they will mark it up before anybody in the public, including a member of the House of Representatives, before
if the gentleman yields, I'll answer his question.
Is that what the gentleman is telling me?
They will post it before they mark it up so everybody can see it and debate it.
To make sure there isn't a sharp drop-off in coverage, Republican leaders say they must offer tax credits. They argue tax deductions only work for upper-income Americans. Some conservatives have pushed back hard on that idea, complaining that would be a new entitlement.
So that's no different than what you get with Obamacare, which is a subsidy. So Obama called it a subsidy. Paul Ryan and some Republicans are calling it a refundable tax credit. It's the same thing.
GOP leaders note virtually every promise that was made in selling Obamacare has been broken, and they say soon they will deliver for the American people. Brett?
Thanks, Mike. Now a Fox News exclusive. We go in depth on all the big issues with House Speaker Paul Ryan. He joins us from Janesville, Wisconsin. Mr. Speaker, thanks for being here.
Hey, good to be with you, Brett. Nice to be with you.
I want to start with, we want to talk about health care, which is why you were out there in Wisconsin, and spend some time on that. But I want to start with the news of the day, the continued fallout from Attorney General Sessions' recusal yesterday and this Russia investigation. I know what you've said about it. Yesterday at a press conference, you said this when asked about recusing.
If he himself is the subject of an investigation, of course he would. But if he's not, I don't see any purpose or reason to doing this.
Okay, so a couple hours after that, he did it. What do you think happened?
Well, I think what he did was he listened to advice of people within the Justice Department on how best to maintain the integrity and the independence of the Justice Department. And so I think I don't think he had to do this, but I think he did what he thought was in the best interest of the Justice Department, which I think is fine. He was a surrogate for the campaign. And so I think he just wanted to err on the side of caution and remove any shred of doubt or concern whatsoever by doing that. So I think he kind of went above and beyond, and I think he should be touted for doing that.
And I've heard you talk about the investigation so far, that you have not seen any evidence of collusion or cooperation or communication beyond what we know now. How many members of Congress do you think have interacted with the Russian ambassador or with their other diplomats over the last several years?
Oh, gosh. I would think dozens, if not more, the hundreds. That's very common. We meet with ambassadors constantly as members of Congress. That's their job, is to come and meet with members of Congress and express their interest, their concerns, especially with people on foreign policy committees like Armed Services Committee or the Foreign Relations Committee. I host an annual reception for the entire diplomatic corps as Speaker of the House every year, and you have dozens of ambassadors coming to the Capitol for just a welcome reception. So it's a very, very, very common thing for members of Congress to interact with ambassadors of other countries.
Understanding that these investigations are going forward and you're going to let them play out, at some point are you going to speak up if there's not there and say we need to move on from this?
No, I think that's right, but they did meddle with our election. That's something we know. And by the way, we know this because of investigations that we in Congress through our intelligence committees and the intelligence community themselves discovered. So that's why we think we want to get to the bottom of what Russia is up to. That's a problem. And Russia not only try to meddle with our election, but they're doing this all around the world. They do this in Europe, obviously Ukraine. So I think there's an interest to make sure that we can find out exactly what is Russia up to and all that they've been doing. But yes, you're right. If this is just more of a fishing expedition, we're not interested in continuing to do a fishing expedition. But having said that, you know, Congress is always doing oversight. This is our job. And the committee in the House, like the committee in the Senate, has a scope that they've agreed to between Republicans and Democrats on how to go forward with this investigation to make sure that no stone is unturned, to make sure that we get to the bottom of things. And as of yet, we've never been presented with any evidence whatsoever that anybody in the Trump campaign or an American official was involved with the Russians on any of this.
Are you concerned on the flip side that the Obama administration may have been surveilling members of the Trump campaign in a pretty detailed investigation during the election?
Well, I don't think that's the case. If you recall, President Obama asked the intelligence community after the election to canvass all the intelligence and give a report to Congress on what Russia did do and all their interactions. And in that report, nobody alleged that there was a person in America, like a Trump campaign official, involved with the Russians on this. So if they would have found that, you think they would have put that in the report that they gave us in early January.
Right, but there's a report that June 2016, there's a FISA request by the Obama administration, Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, to monitor communications involving Donald Trump and several other campaign officials. Then they get turned down, and then in October they renew it, and they do start a wiretap at Trump Tower with some computer and Russian banks, and it doesn't show up anything by reporting. Have you heard that?
Well, again, and like I said, none of us in Congress or anybody that I know in Congress has been presented with evidence to the contrary of what you just said.
So you believe it to be true?
Yeah, that we have seen no evidence that anybody in this campaign or any other American was in on it with the Russians to meddle in our elections. We know they meddled. Russia is an adversary, and that's something we have to work to counteract.
I got it. But my point is that the Obama administration was pretty aggressive. I have a couple of FISA requests.
No, I hear your point, but I'm saying, but I've seen nothing of that. I've seen nothing come of that. That's my point.
Okay, let's turn to Obamacare. You're out there in Janesville making this pitch, kind of doing the messaging. When is the rollout? Will you roll it out next week?
Yeah, well, I'll let the committees of jurisdiction make the announcement on that. But our committees that write these bills, working very, very closely with the administration, are fine-tuning the legislation. That's what you do when you're near the end of a drafting of a big piece of legislation like this. They're going through the fine-tuning of the legislation. So the Commerce Committee and the Ways and Means Committee are the two key committees in the House. They're running point on this in the House. They're working with their counterparts in the Senate and in the White House. When they're done with their fine-tuning, they'll make that announcement, and then they'll tell us when they're ready to go and move on the legislation. So they'll make that announcement pretty soon, I think.
What do you say to the critics who say you're just doing what Democrats used to do, and that's cramming legislation down the throats in kind of the dark of night, not in a transparent way?
Are you kidding me, Brett? Give me a break.
I'm just telling
Seriously.
you what they say.
No, I know. Okay, let's just review what we've been doing. Last year, in early 2016, we rolled out an Obamacare repeal and replace plan. We called it a better way. Go on the internet and read it. We ran on that plan. That plan resembled Tom Price's legislation that so many people in Congress were co-sponsors of. Then after the election came and we won the election, we started putting that plan into legislative text, having hearings. All these hearings on repealing and replacing Obamacare were in the congressional committee. So we've been doing hearings all year long. Now we're translating the findings of those hearings, that plan, into legislative text. That's the fine-tuning of the drafting that's occurring. And then guess what? This bill's not being written in my office like it was in Harry Reid's office on Christmas Eve in 2009. This bill is being written by the committees that are in charge of health care, which is the regular order process. This bill will go through the committee process, go through the Budget Committee, then go to the floor of Congress under what we call regular order.
Right.
That is precisely the most transparent and normal way of doing business, which is the opposite of what the Democrats did when they crammed Obamacare through.
All right, well, here is not a liberal Democrat, a Republican senator who says he's trying to get the details.
Wait, let me guess. You're going to quote Rand Paul for a second
Paul,
here. Yeah,
hold on.
Right. Yeah.
What we think is being hidden from conservatives is that there's a lot of Obamacare light. There's a new entitlement program that will increase at about 5% a year forever. There is also a Cadillac tax, or something similar to the Cadillac tax that was in Obamacare. And there's also an individual mandate, believe it or not. Instead of paying the mandate to the government, they're going to tell you have to pay the mandate by law to an insurance company. So a lot of conservatives will be upset to know that we're keeping those things from Obamacare, and there needs to be an open debate about it.
Is that all true?
No, it's not, and I think he's just kind of, I like Rand, but I think he's looking for a publicity stunt here. What's happening is the committees of jurisdiction are drafting legislation and getting feedback from their members. That's exactly how legislation is supposed to be written. The things he described are just not accurate. And like I said, when the committees write their bills and put their bills out there to mark up, everybody will see what they've done.
Right, but are you worried that if on the tax side or the fight on the Medicaid side that you only have 21 votes to lose and you only have one shot at this with reconciliation? You only have one shot at the apple.
I'm not really worried at all, because we're doing this hand in glove with President Trump, with Tom Price, HHS Secretary, with our counterparts in the Senate. We're all working off the same piece of paper, the same legislation. So let me just describe in general what we're talking about here. We're talking about giving the states control of the Medicaid program, which is something that conservatives have been fighting for years. I wrote our budgets. We used to call them the Roadmap for America, then the Path to Prosperity. Every one of my budgets that I wrote as the conservative gold standard for Republicans was to give states control of Medicaid. And then on the tax front, we've long been saying we need to equalize the tax treatment of health care for everybody in America. Right now, the tax code discriminates against people who do not get health care from their jobs. There's a huge tax benefit if you get health care at work. If you got to go buy your health insurance, there's no tax benefit for you. So what conservatives have long said is let's equalize the tax treatment for health care so that it doesn't matter whether you get health care at work or not at work, let's give you the same kind of tax benefit so that you can go buy what you want to buy. You go into a free market as a consumer and buy the plan of your choosing with the health savings accounts as well. This is what we have long stood on as conservatives. It is the plan that we ran on in all of 2016 that we said if we get the chance of having a Republican president, a Republican House, and a Republican Senate, we're going to repeal and replace Obamacare, and this is what we're going to replace it with. Well, guess what? We are keeping that promise, and that is exactly what we're doing here.
But you're also saying it's going to be a fight over the next few weeks.
It's going to be a fight. It's going to be a fight with people who want Obamacare. We got a choice to make. Do we want to keep Obamacare, or do we want to repeal and replace Obamacare? The president has been extremely clear that we're going to repeal and replace it with a better system that gives people choice and competition that's not run by government,
Obamacare
where people have freedom. I think that's a publicity stunt as far as I'm concerned.
All right. More with Speaker Ryan on a couple of other issues coming up after a short break.